After 5 or 6 years of being around the entertainment business, I instituted a set of rules, and one of them was when I was signing an artist, I would sit him down, take my glasses off, look him in the eyes, and say, you need to really listen to me, and listen seriously. This is not a joke. If I do my job perfectly, I will probably kill you.
Shep Gordon has been my manager now for 43 years. If I hadn't met Shep, I might have gone for 2 or 3 years, and then it would have been over.
I trusted Shep, absolutely, yes, because he's got the Midas touch.
Shep is the quintessential manager. He wrote the book, and everybody else is reading from it.
Shep Gordon is as if Brian Epstein, Marshall McLuhan, and Mr. Magoo had a baby.
So I brag about him all the time. And it's not just his accomplishments, of which there are many. He is the most wholesome person I've ever known. How long do you want me to talk? I can go on forever.
Shep has a built-in ability of real compassion, but also can be a motherfucker.
Shep has the charisma of Elvis, the physique of Steve Reeves, the wit of Mark Twain, and probably hung like Long Dong Silver.
Back in the early days, Shep was like a professional bachelor. He had women coming in the front door while others were leaving out the back door.
I met Shep Gordon in the 80s in Hollywood. I don't know if you remember Carlos and Charlie's, but let's say hypothetical, not me. Hypothetical, you were in the bathroom doing cocaine and the bouncer came in there and you got in a fist fight with him and got 86 from Carlos and Charlie's. Then Shep would be the guy you talked to and begged your way back in. Hypothetical, that happened to you.
Shep and I both have enjoyed pot for years and years and years. We are the proverbial canaries in the mine.
I can recall as a youngster coming up, hearing about this show that Shep had developed with Teddy Pendergrass, which broke black acts from being forced to play the Chitlin circuit.
If somebody asked me, Emerald, who invented the celebrity chef? Hands down, Shep Gordon.
Bam! Just like that! We're gonna kick it up!
A Jew-boo is a Jew who's also a Buddhist. And as you know, the Dalai Lama plays a very important part of his life.
Shep Gordon, this guy, when he gets angry, he goes and cooks for the Dalai Lama. I mean, I'm spiritual. I'm an Aries with a penis rising.
I've met more famous people through Shep Gordon than all my other friends combined.
Before I started working for Shep, I had a job working with Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. And the first thing he said to me was, "Do you know how to get a hold of Shep Gordon?"
You go, God, I didn't know that everyone knows Shep.
If the walls could talk on Shep's house in Maui, they would never shut up.
He does the right thing most of the time. Sometimes his libido gets away from him. He doesn't necessarily think with his head. He thinks somewhere else.
Rockstar Mulligan.
I think by far we have the most legendary relationship.
Hello, sorry.
Shep and I never have ever had a contract. I don't think we've ever taken the business as seriously as we've taken a relationship.
Thank you.
It's like a good marriage.
These two, Shep and Alice, would literally do anything to protect each other. And they love each other. They truly love each other.
Shep and I are very family-oriented. If something would happen with my wife and I, he would have adopted the kids, and I would have been very happy with that.
Family's important. It's where you came from. It's your history. It's part of who you are.
The ladies in his life have been stunningly beautiful.
But I've always wanted to have a baby.
I'm hoping as he gets a little older, that'll balance out.
The smell, I love the smell of a little baby.
I'm not saying he's got to take a dog.
In the last chance for our family, really.
I'd like to see him with a good lady who gives back to him as much as he gives to everybody else.
I think I got a couple of years, maybe still mess around.
We got to remember, this is a man who used to walk around wearing a T-shirt that said, "No head, no backstage pass." So we got to start there, and now we work our way forward.
I graduated from the University of Buffalo, which were the greatest days of my life. But I was an idealist, a product of my times. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a social liberal. I wanted to save the world. As a sociologist, there were very few jobs, so I decided I was going to be a probation officer and save some kids.
Can't something be done to help these twisted young lives?
In 1968, I took a test for the probation department in California and passed. I was on my white horse riding into Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, which is an hour outside of Los Angeles. And in those days, I had fairly long hair. All the other guards really hated long hairs. They sent me out to play softball with the kids. The other guards left, and the kids just started coming at me, and I could see this was not going to be friendly, and the kids just started whacking me. I sort of became the softball. The guard said, "Did you figure it out? We don't want you here." And I said, "I got it, I'm leaving." And I drove into Los Angeles. And there was a motel vacancy sign. It was a 2-story motel around the swimming pool. I later found out it was a Hollywood landmark hotel. And I checked into my room, take a little acid, which is sort of what we all did then. Now here I am, high as a kite, loving the world. And I think I hear a girl being raped around the swimming pool. So I run downstairs to separate these two people, and the girl went crazy, punched me, because they were making love. They weren't fighting. And I've now been in LA for 24 hours. I've been beat up twice. This is not going well. I came down in the morning. I could hear that same voice of the girl, because I never saw her that night. She called me over and said, "Are you the guy I hit last night?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was Janis Joplin. She introduced me to the guy she was sitting with, which was Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix said, "Are you Jewish?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You should be a manager." I said, "Great, no problem. Who should I manage?" Alice Cooper.
So we go over to the landmark, and we open the door to his hotel room, and you couldn't see from me to you for smoke. And I don't mean cigarettes. And when you cleared the smoke, there on the couch was Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Shep. There was the biggest names in the business sitting here with this guy, and he wasn't managing them. They just were hanging out with him.
They came in the room and they said, "So we hear you want to manage us?" And I said, "Yeah, come with me." And they went in the bedroom, and I opened the drawer, and I had all this grass in the drawer. And I said, "Here, you guys want some grass?" And I gave them that. And they said, "You're our manager." This motel, the Hollywood landmark, where Janis ended up dying, unfortunately. It was a very popular hotel for musicians then, but it was a different time. It wasn't a business. There were people struggling to make a living and do something they enjoyed doing. They weren't what they are today. They weren't Mount Rushmore. And I had a great group of friends who were sort of my family. After I started managing Alice, he was playing a show at the Cheetah Club. The Doors were headlining, so it was a very big crowd. And then Alice came on. Alice was drunk. He was shouting at the people, "Nobody likes me, nobody likes me," which was one of his songs.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me.
It was just horrible. He was shouting at the people, "Why don't you all go home?" And they did, and the room emptied. Alice completely killed the Doors crowd, but I didn't really care. I wasn't really taking it seriously, because I was selling drugs to the guys at the hotel. And I had to pretend to be a manager, just in case the police asked you where you got the money to stay in the motel. One day, Jimi Hendrix says, "I got another group for you to manage. They're in room 128. You got any cards?" Cards? What's a card? I don't have a card. No, business card. You gotta have a business card. What's the name of the company? So I don't have the name of the company. Jimmy says, "Get a word with a V in it and draw a hand giving the peace sign." So it'll be a cool looking card. So we went to the front desk and we got a Webster's dictionary, looking for the first word with a V, alive. So he brings these guys in, and it's Pink Floyd. I managed them for, I think, 9 days. I was so over my head. You know, I was 21 or 22 managing Alice. And I thought we sort of made it when Bill Graham booked Alice at the Fillmore in San Francisco. Bill Graham was a concert promoter, and if he booked you, it meant you could get booked throughout the country because he was the tastemaker. He called me up, and he put him on opening for Ike and Tina Turner. He assumed that Alice Cooper was a female folk act, and we never did anything to change that concept for him. So Alice shows up, he's wearing a coat made out of dead rats. Bill Graham takes a look at the stage, he gets his goons, and they pull Alice off the stage and throws him out of the building.
That star has introduced male mascara. Big deal.
A lot of people were starting to get busted for drugs at the Landmark. It just seemed like I better stop. So I sat down with Alice and I said, if you want to really do this seriously, let's do it. We made a pact that we were going to stay together till we were millionaires.
There was never, ever a thought of maybe Shep's not the right guy. No matter what this was, he would navigate us through this rough passage right here.
We started to get other gigs, but it wasn't enough to live on. And I realized that I had to do something radical. The acts that occupied the ground that we wanted to get to, part of their appeal was hatred by parents.
We knew that if you could get the parents to hate you, the kids were going to love you.
I came up with this ridiculous idea of buying see-through clothes made out of clear plastic, putting Alice on stage naked, basically, and calling the police and getting them arrested for indecent exposure, which we assumed would get newspaper coverage and would get parents to say, oh, these guys are disgusting. They played naked. They get up on stage completely naked. People in the audience are like, oh my God. So I went to a phone booth and called the police, told them that I had my child at a club and this band was naked on stage and this was horrible. How could they allow this to happen? Put the phone down. I hear a siren. And as the police come around, their see-through clothes had fogged up from the heat and you couldn't see anything. And the police came in and looked around like, what, are they crazy, and left. After the show, I said, you know, we've just hit that classic moment where we can't get arrested. It's definitely time to leave the city.
We were, at that time, starving to death.
Alice was born in Detroit, so we had relatives that we knew would feed us. We all got in the car and drove to Detroit. We played many cities on the way out.
Once we went down the road, every single thing that could happen to a band happened to us.
We never had money to pay for anything, so we would run out on motels with bad checks.
We would write a bad check to get us out of the hotel so we could go to the hotel next door.
The hotel called the police, and we all dove out of windows, got in the car and drove to the next city.
Because they said we stole some towels. You know, this is silly. We don't even wash. When we made money, Shep went back and made sure that all those checks were good. He would say, I wrote you a check that didn't work, but let me make it right by you, and he would pay him right there. That tells you who Shep is right there.
Kick out the jams, motherfucker!
MC5, kurz für Motor City 5. Die kommen nämlich aus Detroit.
So we went to Detroit, this vibrant music scene, MC5, the Stooges.
In Detroit, Shep says, we have to develop this Alice guy. Let's invent something new that nobody's ever seen before, and let's stick with it.
Stop! Look and listen.
I had a professor who said that you can make a cultural impact through one of three things: violence, sex, or rebellion. I thought, what if Alice was all three of these things?
So Shep had a lot to do with what Alice ended up looking like and sounding like.
What I loved was doing a stage show, and that's what we built on.
Theatrics. That's really what made us different from other bands.
Alice is vaudeville. The idea is to have the audience standing and cheering. So we started doing things like putting dollar bills on the end of a sword. Alice would hold it over the crowd. The first row would jump to get it. Everybody else would stand up, which had nothing to do particularly with the song he was singing, but got the desired effect, which was get everybody having fun and standing and cheering. So we were looking for an ending of the show, and we were staying somewhere, and there was a feather pillow. So I said, let's just steal the feather pillow.
We'd open up feather pillows and just fill the place with feathers.
It'll make this fantastic thing for lights on stage. It won't cost us anything.
We became very good at putting a show together. We just didn't know how to sell it to the world.
The public has a certain image of who's important. So if they see someone walking down the street and people are taking pictures of them, they're going to say to the person with them, who is that? And they're going to get inquisitive. There were so many times that we hired photographers that didn't have film, that just kept flashing. Because that's what the expectation of being a star is.
Even when we were starving, Shep would implant in your head, you're already a star. Act like a star. If it means getting drunk every night, because that's what a star does, then that's what you do.
The idea is to talk to an audience that's much broader than your fan base, and the most effective thing for that is television. So we tried to do as many outrageous things as we could to irritate people.
The Detroit Tube Works strikes again.
This is where we separate the teenagers from the adults as we present the always outrageous and sometimes offensive Alice Cooper.
We were slowly building an audience in Detroit, and I started to get statements seeing how much money they were losing. Then a miracle happened. I got a call from this guy who was putting together the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival. It was going to be the first time John Lennon was performing without the Beatles.
So if we can create some hope with this festival, maybe we could take it around the world.
They wanted my help organizing the festival.
And we'll give you 30% of the proceeds. He says, I don't want any money. He says, I want my band to play between John Lennon and the Doors at prime time.
My goal was to make this a place where Alice would shine.
60,000 people. We go on, and it's great. We're tearing the place up, and the feathers are going. And I look down, and there's a chicken on stage. The only person that could have brought the chicken was Shep, because nobody in the audience would bring a chicken to that concert. Nobody would say, okay, I got my keys, I got my tickets, I got my chicken.
I thought, let's have a live chicken, it would be fantastic. I threw it out at him.
I took the chicken and tossed it thinking it had feathers, it should fly. Well, it didn't fly as much as it plummeted.
Everybody went wild.
The audience tore it to pieces.
They threw it back at him. They threw back wings and legs and heads, came flying back up on the stage. And then I saw blood. So I turned my head because I faint when I see blood.
Next day in the paper, Alice Cooper rips head off chicken and drinks the blood. What should have been incredibly horrible press for anybody became the thing that put us on the map. Now we can do anything we want to do.
Alice is starting now to get some attention, and I realized we need to make a hit record. We talked about whose records did we like the most. And there was a band called the Guess Who. They had just had one of the biggest records ever. We went to see Jack Richardson, who was the producer, and he brought out this young man, Bob Ezrin. Bob Ezrin went on to produce some great records, Pink Floyd, The Wall, Kiss Destroyer. He's a genius. But at that point, Bob Ezrin had never made a record. And I said, you got to come to New York and see Alice. They're playing Max's Kansas City.
Jack, in truth, wanted nothing to do with the band, but they sent me to New York City to get rid of them.
And Jack told them, under any circumstances, do not say yes to producing the album.
They sat me at a table at the front of the stage, and the lights all went out. The lights came up just a tiny amount, and I heard, sunrise, come every morning. As the lights came up, I was staring face to gums at Alice Cooper, and everybody was dressed in something stranger than the next guy. They were all wearing feathers and thigh-high boots. There were no T-shirts. There were no jeans. This wasn't rock and roll. When I looked around the room and saw everyone looking just like him, I realized that this was the beginning of a cultural movement. I went up to the dressing room, and I committed us to doing the record. I said, we'll do it.
When I met Alice, he had signed to Frank Zappa's company. Frank Zappa was a Warner Brothers artist. He negotiated with Warner Brothers to get his own label, Straight Records. I went to Frank Zappa and told him that I had Jack Richardson, and he freaked out, said he's completely the wrong guy. This guy makes pop records, don't want him, don't need him, and wouldn't pay for it. But I didn't take no for an answer. Went to our fellow at Warner Brothers and said to him, we got Jack Richardson. And he said, we'd do anything to work with Jack. I said, you know, but the guys at Straight don't think Alice should work with someone who makes hit records. He said, let me see if I can get you some money. So he came back to me and said, I have a budget, but you can't tell anybody. It came from a Doobie Brothers recording budget. Pat Simmons from the Doobies and I laugh about it all the time. We recorded the Love It to Death album. One of the tracks was 18. I I could tell it was a hit record.
Then he goes, yeah, I like it. I can sell that.
But now Straight Records refuses to put it out because Frank thought that it was way too commercial. So we had to promote our record alone.
And Shep was very, very smart about how to sell it.
In Canada, there was a radio station in Windsor called CKLW. If CKLW added your record, every station in America would play it. Somewhere in the back of my brain, I remembered that Canada had just
imposed a content ruling on radio in 1971. A minimum of 30% of airtime on all Canadian stations must be devoted to Canadian talent.
Alice was an American. But luckily we recorded in Canada, which meant the album qualified. CKLW programmed the record because they had to. It was Canadian. 18 goes up the charts at CKLW. Every other station in the country wants the track, and nobody knows where the record is. Warner Brothers is getting floods of calls now for the track. Straight Records refuses to put it out. Warner Brothers realized they had to take a position. And finally, they said, shh, don't say anything to Straight, we're gonna put it out. That album first came out on Warner Brothers. Straight then sued Warner's and went onto the Straight label. I said, if it's on the Straight label, you can't put it out. Went back to Warner's. That album had 17 different labels. Straight, Warner Brothers, Straight, Warner Brothers, Straight, Warner Brothers. And we ended up in a lawsuit for the next 7 or 8 years.
We're talking tens of millions of dollars going up and down.
We never got the money. No, they kept the money.
I'm a killer and
We were looking at where we could get some money, and the answer was England. I immediately booked Alice into Wembley Arena in London, which was a 10,000-seat venue. We had only sold 50 tickets. So I thought, how do I get people in England to know who Alice Cooper is?
I'm a gambler.
Warner's had recently hired a guy named Derek Taylor.
Derek Taylor, Beatles publicist.
Derek was this beautiful character who would have a cigarette and spoke very few words. He created Beatlemania.
Derek, is it true, or are the Beatles really finished?
No, not until they die.
When I walked into Derek Taylor's office, Harry Nilsson was there, George Harrison was there, and Carolyn Pfeiffer. She was our PR person in England. She represented great talent.
My client list included Barbra Streisand, Robert Redford, Liza Minnelli, Paul McCartney and Wings. Breaking Alice in England was part of the master plan of making Alice an international rock star.
Derek asked me to tell him a little bit about Alice Cooper. I told him that anything parents hated, we loved.
Alice had been photographed naked with a boa constrictor covering his genitalia.
And Derek says, photo, truck, Piccadilly, we break it down. And Derek said, if you're really looking for hatred of parents, this will get it.
So he had the idea of making a billboard truck, having this truck go into Piccadilly Circus.
He had him drive around Piccadilly Circus at rush hour and then break down.
This was the main artery in London, and it was rush hour.
Shep told the driver, whatever you do, don't move the truck. The guy said, well, I'm going to get arrested. Shep said, we know, but we'll take really good care of you.
My job as the PR person was to notify all of the British press.
So that the news would get a picture of this naked guy with a snake wrapped around him named Alice.
Absolutely a nightmare traffic jam in the city of London.
And sure enough, we made the evening news, we made all the papers.
The next day, Wembley sold out.
It all worked.
The event is so momentous that historians may one day view it as a landmark in the decline of the British Empire.
After the show, School's Out, the single went to #1 in England, #1 around the world. It was fantastic to have the money, but more so that it was working, and you could high-five yourself in the mirror.
The School's Out album may have been the biggest leap for us. This was really where it all came together. The vocal performances on that album are unrivaled. The idea for the School's Out cover was you could actually assemble the thing into a school desk.
And when you lift up the school desk, what would be in it? Well, I said it would be switchblades, and there would be gum and this and this. And Shep goes, panties.
Panties.
And I said, panties? And he goes,
panties.
He says, if you're 7th grade, you open up the desk, and you can provide a pair of panties, you're the man. And Shep goes, put the panties on the record. So the record's wearing the panties. And the guys at Warner Brothers are going, you know how expensive that is? He says, do you know how revolutionary this is?
School's Out sold millions of copies. We started touring the world. Life on the road is a difficult journey. You wake up and never really know exactly where you are. For all of us, drugs and liquor became crutches. I would call up room service at night and have a Bloody Mary left at the bed. Wake up in the morning, see where I was. Okay. One of the goals was to try to never unpack, because you could wake up after abusing yourself the night before and not leave anything in your room. The road became a series of lists. Was everyone here? Everybody was in the cars to get to the airport. Did everybody get out of the cars? Was at the right place? Did all the baggage get checked? They were all at the gate. You pull up to the show, and there's the PA op, is the equipment set up. Spotlight operators to their spotlights. 30 minutes before, I want my crew in uniform and ready to go. 5 minutes down, the band is at the side of the stage. At 1 minute, stage goes black, they go on, and show starts on time. The three most important things a manager does. One is get the money. Two is always remember to get the money. Three is never forget to always remember to get the money. Then trying to make sure that everybody gets out of the hall after the show, that there's no underage women anywhere in the room, because that brings way too much attention.
And it's wrong.
And it's wrong, yeah. And the plane scene in Almost Famous was based on something that happened to me on tour. We were on the Alice Cooper plane. Cameron Crowe was on board doing a story on Alice. Then the engine caught on fire. We thought we were going down. One of the roadies yelled, "We're all going to die. I need to confess something." He turns to another guy who had just found out his wife was pregnant and said, "I'm the real father of your wife's baby." A few seconds later, the pilot says, "Sorry about that, folks. Fire's out. We're going to land safely." The next 20 minutes, we all sat there very uncomfortably.
I didn't die.
And then they came back to London to shoot the album cover, $1 Billion Baby. I loaned them my baby.
She had just had a baby, beautiful little girl named Lola. She's the little baby Alice is holding with the eye makeup. The baby's godfather was Charlie Chaplin. $1 Billion Babies was very, very, very successful.
We were all just kids, and suddenly here's the biggest group in the world with a private plane meeting the most exotic people in the most exotic places. They were accepted as superstars.
Most managers are going, no, don't do that. Oh, it's bad for the image. If anything, Shep was going, no, do it. Just do it. Keep doing it.
We had booked our first baseball stadium, and we're trying to think of what to do that could be impressive at a ballpark. And I called up Al and said, "I got it. I'm gonna shoot you out of a cannon."
And I go, okay.
He goes, "Great."
It wasn't like, that's dangerous.
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't do that. I would get in the cannon. I would get out the side of the cannon. They'd put a dummy of me in the cannon, and it would shoot it across the stage and catch it in a net. I would already be over there, and I'd come out. That was the trick.
That was the trick. They light the fuse, the explosion goes off, and the dummy comes out maybe 2 feet.
It just goes,
And
it goes.
Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen in my
The
entire
audience
life.
was laughing their heads off, and I said, well, worked on a Clouseau level, and in the end,
And we
sold the
still talk.
cannon to the Rolling Stones.
I moved back to LA because the business demanded that I be in Los Angeles. In the 70s, life got fast. Way too much success, lots of beautiful women, lots of drugs. Alice went through his alcoholism. I did spend a little time at the Playboy Mansion. My first night, I took my clothes off and left them at the side of the jacuzzi. And when I got out, my clothes were gone, and I thought someone had stolen my clothes. But at the Playboy Mansion, they had people who pressed and ironed your clothes while you were in the jacuzzi and hung them up. To be at the Playboy Mansion and be in the hot tub, you know, have your clothes pressed was every Jewish kid from Long Island's greatest dream. And after that, I met Marcy Hansen, who was a Playmate centerfold. We had a very intense relationship, got married, spur of the moment, and realized very shortly it wasn't the right thing to do and got it annulled. By now, I started to make some money, so I bought several houses. One of the homes that I bought had a miniature train that went from the house to the pool. At one point, I bought Alice's house in Benedict Canyon and used to get these people ringing the doorbell. I realized Alice's house had been put on the Hollywood star map, so I had a sign made up that said, "Alice doesn't live here anymore. Go back and get a refund." When I lived in that house, I had a cat named the Sensitive One. And that house was next door to Cary Grant. One day, the cat went missing. Somebody told me it went into Cary Grant's house. The next day, I went over to Cary Grant's house and rang the bell. His assistant opened the door, and through the crack of the door, I could see Cary Grant with the Sensitive One. So I said, "Mr. Grant, that's my cat." And Barbara Grant, his wife, said, "You can't take the cat. It's brought Cary back to life." So me and Cary Grant agreed on joint custody of the cat. What's really important for me in conducting business is to attempt to do compassionate business, which means that there aren't winners and losers. There's only winners, and a lot of it is what I call using coupons. And by a coupon, I mean paying someone back for someone doing something for you that they didn't have to do.
And words cannot express how thrilled I am to have you on the show.
A little money wouldn't hurt either.
I met Groucho through Alice.
Groucho saw us on television and wanted to come and see our show. And when he came to see the show, he saw it as vaudeville.
So Alice got friendly with Groucho, and he would literally get in bed with him every night till he fell asleep. So then they would watch TV. And Alice would tell me the next day the commentary would be like, every old-timer that came on, he had, "Oh, yeah, he was gay. Oh, yeah, this guy liked midgets. Oh, yeah, and he was fucking Zeppo's girlfriend." And, you know, everybody had, there was some story to everything.
But his finances were all over the place. And when Shep kind of looked at his books, Shep said, "Just let me take care of your finances and get this all back in order."
I started managing Groucho Marx.
They did it for free.
Every time he'd see me, "You're Shep?" I say, "Yeah." "My manager?" I say, "Yeah, Groucho." "Funny, you don't look like a crook." So we were looking at his life where we could get some money, and A&M had done a live album of Groucho in concert. I had heard about Jerry Moss, head of A&M, one of the giants of the industry, and I said, "Well, Mr. Moss, we're just looking for people who would put some money in advance against future earnings." Jerry, being who he is, wrote a personal check to Groucho that was very large and said, "What else can I do to help?" And I've paid back that coupon the rest of my life. I will do anything at any time I can ever do for Jerry Moss. That's what a coupon is. At a point managing Alice and Groucho, I felt like I still had a lot to prove to see if what I was doing would work for other artists.
I did not get the Anne Murray thing at all.
Beneath its snowy metal, cold and clean.
She was this Canadian folk singer.
And she had one of the purest voices that God ever put on this planet. And she was as far from Alice as I could possibly get.
I wasn't flamboyant. I was just a really, really good singer.
Very white bread, very clean. She's so middle America. She's past middle America. She's Canadian.
When I was in LA recording, I stayed at Shep's house. Not only was the refrigerator full, it was all the booze you could drink, but there was a note from somebody on the counter and it said, "There's a surprise for you in the drawer." And I looked in the drawer and here's this large vial of white powder. So little snowbird, take me with you when you go.
I had no idea it was there. I never knew until I read her book. I'm amazed she even knew what it was, but maybe somebody told her.
What I was looking for from Shep was to create a buzz in the business, and everybody who was anybody came on to the Midnight Special.
It was at a time when hip meant everything. And the last thing Midnight Special wanted was a straight-laced singer from Canada. So I thought, I got to do something that's going to make Annie the hippest thing that's ever been on this planet. So I booked her in the Troubadour. You know, this is all cool, but nobody is going to give a shit. One of the techniques that I've always used is what I call guilt by association, which is if you take somebody really famous and put them next to someone else, that other person melts off the fame. And Alice had a group at that time called the Hollywood Vampires.
Hollywood Vampires was a drinking club. Harry Nilsson and Mickey Dolenz and John Lennon.
It was his dark era, and he was very rarely photographed. So if people could get their hands on John Lennon, that's going to be very big.
He says, Alice, you got to get all the Hollywood Vampires to come down to Anne Murray's show.
The whole purpose for that whole night was to get a photograph of Anne Murray standing next to these icons who were the coolest people in the world.
Everybody in that group, they were all cynical.
So I went to the Rainbow that night, and I literally got down on my hands and knees. And I said, guys, you got to help me. I'm representing this girl, Anne Murray. I booked her in the Troubadour, and if I could get you guys up there for a picture with her, I'll do anything for you. And they did it.
And that picture has had more mileage than any other picture that I have ever had taken in my career. Rolling Stone wanted to interview me. I was all of a sudden the it girl for a few weeks.
I got her on Midnight Special, and it really helped break her.
Yeah.
Even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey.
To her credit, Annie always stayed Anne Murray. She didn't go on Midnight Special and wear bangles. She was Anne Murray.
Everything's gonna be all right.
People thought taking on Anne Murray was folly on Shep's part, but the reality is he hated the Alice Cooper stuff. The music that he liked was sort of Anne Murray-style folk and the Spinners. He wanted me to make records that sounded more like the Spinners with Alice Cooper.
Soul music. That's my personal taste. I used to love Aretha, Etta James, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. There was a song called Wake Up Everybody. That was my anthem in life. I used to listen to it every day.
Wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way.
I got a call from CBS Records. He said, we have an act who we think is going to be very big, and we need a good manager. And I said, who is it? And he said, Teddy Pendergrass. And I had never heard of Teddy Pendergrass, so I went to Philadelphia. He was playing a small theater.
Life is a song we're singing.
The show was absolutely horrible. He did a James Brown show with a cape. He had these dancers who were hokey, but he did Wake Up Everybody during the show, and I realized that he was the guy from Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, one of my favorite groups. Wow. So I go backstage afterwards, lined up at the door like every Jewish manager in show business, like a cattle call. So I just left, never saw Teddy, and I got a call saying, how'd the Teddy meeting go? So I said, I'm not going to wait on a line at the door and tell the guy I'm a cool guy. So he set up an appointment with Teddy at his apartment. In the front of the apartment building was a white Rolls Royce, Teddy on the license plate. And I take the elevator up to the penthouse. I said, I'm not going to waste a lot of your time. There's very few things I know in life. But I'll tell you what I can do. I can get higher than you. I got more beautiful women than you. I can get drunker than you. And when you collapse and the cash is in your pocket from the show, I'll still be up to get the cash out and make sure it's safe so you don't get robbed. And he said, what? And I said, why don't you meet me somewhere? Bring the best drugs you have. And if you're standing at the end of it, you don't need me. If I'm standing, you need me. I was just hoping he'd say no, goodbye. And then he said yes. I thought, holy shit, now I got to do this. I decided if I was really going to do this thing, I had to have a really cool briefcase, and I bought a wooden briefcase. But it was all filled with drugs. You opened it up, and it was like a pharmacy. We smoked grass, we had cocaine, we took mushrooms, lewds, we had women coming and going, and oh, we were bad. And 3 days later, he collapsed, and I was his manager for the rest of his life.
The thing about Shep is he tells the best stories. And I remember Shep telling me he had taken Alice Cooper to a gig somewhere, and when Alice got backstage, they laid out a nice spread of drinks and sandwiches. And about a month later, he had Teddy Pendergrass come through this same venue. And when he got backstage, there was barely a bottle of water.
So after the show, I go to the promoter, and I said, can I get the money for Teddy? And he said, I don't have any, I didn't bring it. I said, well, what does that mean? We're not going to pay him. I said, you're not going to pay him. You're not going to leave here alive. And I got nothing to lose. I have no family. I have no kids. I don't give a shit. And he took off his ring, and he said, what about the ring? So I took the ring. I went back into Teddy, and I said, how the fuck do you think I'm going to get 20% of this ring? He explained to me what happened in the black world, which just blew my mind, that there was this thing called the Chitlin Circuit, which was promoters who owned radio stations, booked the acts, played the records. Record company would send them in, and they never got paid. But the artists thought that if they didn't do the shows, they wouldn't get their records played, and they'd lose their record deals.
That got him to really realize that The artists were being treated differently, and he didn't think that was right.
So we talked about what do we do, and I said, let's fuck them, we'll break the circuit. And he said, I didn't want to bother telling you this because I knew you'd freak out, but do you know what happened to my last manager? And I said, no. And he said, she got shot to death. You don't want to mess with these guys. And holy shit, she got murdered. That's like serious.
There was a lot of gangsterism in the music business at that time, which you'd have to be able to deal with all different kind of cats and be able to hold your own across the table.
I really didn't think I had much to lose. I was a loner, I didn't have a family. So I said, well, fuck them. I'm gonna book you in a white place, so you're gonna get paid, and we're not gonna do this shit. Let them kill us. Who gives a shit? So we booked the Roxy in LA, which was so white bread, it was like beyond white bread.
My latest, my greatest inspiration.
But he did the most boring show that night. He sat on a stool. At the end of the show, I went backstage and I said, you motherfucker. I risked my life for you to sit on a fucking stool and not give anything up? Every girl in that audience, all they wanted to do was fuck your brains out. And you're sitting on a stool being like a cool guy. It's bullshit. And I said, you know what I would like? I would like to be the only guy in that room, and you get him turned on. And as I said it, I said, wait a second. Let's do shows for women only.
My latest, my greatest inspiration.
There has been a lot of screaming at the Greek Theater the past couple of nights. What's the excitement about? Teddy Pendergrass.
Last night's sold-out performance was billed as a for women-only concert.
With Teddy, we realized it was all about sex. And that's where the songs came from.
What appeals to you about him?
His body. His body.
5 platinum albums in a row. That's some kind of record. Yes, Eddie?
Platinum.
He was going to be the Black Elvis. Every time we put anything out, we always said Black Elvis, to endorse him. And I got nothing to lose. I have no family, I have no kids. I don't give a shit. At this point in my life, I was very successful, but that didn't really mean anything to me. I felt the stress of LA. Just the culture of what you are, not who you are. Everything external, very little internal. A frenzy to get invited to all the parties. But I wanted a family, but I never really developed a family. I didn't have time to like serenade anybody. Every famous person that I had gotten to meet was damaged by the fame. At this point, Jimi Hendrix was dead. Jim Morrison was dead. Janis Joplin was dead. Alice was in rehab. The ones who rose to the top got hurt the worst. The pattern became obvious. And I realized that I was becoming one of them. Maui is the newest landmass on the planet, and it has the personality of a baby. It smells sweet, like a baby smells. All those kind of things that a baby has, the land really has, and an amazing innocence. In '74, I took hydrofoil to Maui, put one foot on the dock, and knew I was living here the rest of my life, and sold my house in LA and live in Maui. My life in Hawaii centers around my house. I think I paid $620,000. Now its value is somewhere between 15 and 20 million, but I'm not selling. I basically have an open door policy. If someone's a friend of mine and needs a place to stay, whether I'm here or not here. And I think probably from my childhood where I didn't have friends over to the house, I think I'm more than making up for it in some strange way.
Shep was born with a smile, and that smile stayed with him ever since.
I grew up in Oceanside, New York, a small town outside New York City. I had a great relationship with my father. He sacrificed a lot, but it was my mom who ran the house. My mother was a tough Jewish lady, very cruel, just a cruel old lady. I have a brother, Edward. He was the star of the family.
And Shep was the black sheep of the family, actually.
I used to get money for my birthday. My mother would make me give it to my brother. Why do I have to give him my birthday money? My brother had a dog that always bit me. My mother decided the dog had the run of the house. So growing up, I never had a friend over.
Yo, just came from the farm.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Great to be in the kitchen with you again, Tina.
Good to be.
Boy, look at that puppy. Wow.
What do you think of that, boys?
It's so good. I never really had any interest in cooking. I was a spaghetti and ketchup kind of guy. And then one night at the Cannes Film Festival, I got taken to a restaurant called the Moulin des Mougins. The who's who of Hollywood was in the room. And in walked this beautifully elegant man with white hair. Everyone in the room's attention turned to him. James Coburn jumped up and hugged him, and Anthony Quinn came over. I had no idea who he was, but I knew that I was drawn to him. And I immediately decided that he was someone I wanted to learn from. I later found out that he was Mr. Roger Verger, 3-star Michelin chef, a Legion of Honor winner, and the father of Nouveau cuisine. I was fairly well buzzed. I went over to Mr. Verger, and he was sitting with Pablo Picasso. Maybe it wasn't Pablo Picasso. I was pretty high that night. I went over to Mr. Verger and I said, "Hello, sir, I'd like to be your grasshopper." In very broken English, he said to me, "What is this grasshopper?" He had no idea what I was talking about. And he said, "Well, I am a chef. Do you cook?" So I told him, "I don't cook, but I will cook if that's what it takes to be around you." And off I went to cooking school. And Mr. Verger and I became friends and ended up spending 5-6 weeks a year traveling the world. What I saw in Mr. Verger was that you could be successful and happy. I had only really seen success and misery, and he was the first person I saw who had true success, mastered his craft, respect from his peers, and he was happy. He was always happy. His joy came through always putting the comfort of other people before him. Mr. Verger taught me the art of the dinner party.
There's a signal or a conch shell or something that he puts out over the islands that says, "Come to my house."
It's almost like he don't even invite you. It's just like what's understood need not be discussed.
The idea is to make everyone feel as good as they can possibly feel. You focus completely on your guests. It's never about what you want. If you have young people, you want bright light. Older people, soft lighting. Round tables are important because they have a sense of equality. If you're a person in the public eye and you're at a table with people who are in awe of you, that can make for a miserable night. At my house, you're not going to get asked for your autograph. I try and invite 2 people who maybe haven't met but would like to.
And he introduces me to Clint Eastwood. Hey, it's Tom Arnold. You guys hang out now. Clint Eastwood's like, what the fuck is going on here? But, you know, he has to hang out because Shep told him to hang out with me.
Shep came in and went, "You want to go to a luau with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sly?" And I thought, yeah.
I didn't realize he was this gourmand. He knows how to wrap his teeth around some good food. So he brought me into his world, and I was introduced to fantastic feasts with an accoutrement of wonderful friends.
Sure enough, there was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. It was like being at Madame Tussauds with a pig.
Mr. Verger taught me that if you have someone who everyone is interested to meet, you always leave an empty chair at each table so that person can move from table to table. There are people who really shouldn't sit with anyone ever. That's usually who I end up sitting with. If I hear anybody at my house doing business, I get right over to the table.
You start hustling somebody, you will never get invited back.
There comes a point at the end of the evening where it's over, but nobody knows it's over, and you can't just say, "Get out." So I would just go to sleep, leaving all the guests there.
For most people, living on an island like Maui would mean that they were now cut off from the rest of the world. For Shep Gordon, it means he is the nexus, the meeting point for everybody that means anything in the entire world. They all end up in Maui at some point, and they all end up in Shep's kitchen.
Shep's house in Hawaii is like a sanctuary. There was a time in my life that was a very hard time, and I called him up and I said, "I would like to hang out with you in Hawaii for a week, and I know that it's probably not cool to ask and that I should probably wait to be asked." He said, "No, never. I have an open door policy. You can always come in anytime." And I ended up staying at his house for 2 months, and he fed me and he took care of me like as if I was a baby chick that had fallen out of the nest.
He is a protector, and that's what he is. He's a protector. He keeps the wolf from the door.
One of the issues and problems with Hawaii, like a lot of places, is it's a nice place to go holiday for celebrities, but you have to deal with paparazzi. You know, you got to deal, and there's not all of us want to be seen in the water, you know what I mean? Looking like a beached whale.
This asshole down at the Four Seasons, it's a long photo, is taking pictures of me when I have my shirt off and I'm bending up. And then 2 years in a row in the National Choir, it said beached whale. Like, that's hilarious. I did put it on my fridge to try to lose weight. It did not help, but that's a fact. So I go to Shep, I go, what do I do about this? He goes, oh, I'll take care of it. Done. Like the mafia, done. Are you having the guy killed? Which is fine, but then he makes some sort of deal with him.
My phone rang. Hello?
Hey, Derek. It's Shep.
Yeah, Shep, it was me. He goes, oh, that was you. Okay, good. Thank goodness. What can we do?
I'll figure out some way to make you both happy.
In the end, it worked out. I left, and for Shep, all I ask is, you know, every now and then he'd let me have a shot.
Then I was there with Ashley. You know, we're getting ready for our wedding, and part of our wedding it was behind Shep's house, but you could see it from the beach, and we really didn't want to have pictures of people, you know, and so he said, we'll talk to Derek Shook.
You know, I shot Tom Arnold's wedding right here at Shep's house.
So Derek Shook came, he took like one picture of us, and nobody else came down. Nobody even walked down the beach.
I knew where all the other paparazzi were. I had another guy on a beach holding 2 paparazzi, making sure they weren't coming here, and I had another guy being followed around. I want the celebrity to be happy. I want Shep to be happy, which is the most important thing to me.
I've never heard Shep say, you should really get even with that asshole. But I've heard him say, let me try to work this thing out. You know, he's that kind of guy.
Shep never gets starstruck with anybody, but he does get girl-struck.
Shep likes ladies.
My favorite girlfriend of Shep's, and who I've always felt a strong bond to, was the first girlfriend of his I met, Winona.
I met Winona Williams in the 70s on a blind date. She was a model, very beautiful. She moved in that night. She had a daughter, Mia, who also moved in. And Mia was this beautiful angel. And we lived together for maybe 3 years. Unfortunately, Winona and I split up, and Winona and Mia moved back east. I didn't see Winona and Mia for 15 years. In 1991, I got a phone call from Winona that Mia passed away. And at the funeral, I saw these 4 beautiful little angels. I said, who are the kids? And I didn't know that Mia had children. Something just came over me, and I took Winona and I said, I have resources. I don't know if I have emotions, but I have resources. And if you'll raise them for the next 18 years, I can finance it.
I guess he just kind of seen this little bushel of kids that were hers, you know, and since he had so much love for her, I think that definitely assisted in his decision.
A few days later, I went and found a house in Monroe, New York, and bought it for them. They moved in, and the journey began.
There's Chase running around from the back.
It took about a year till I really met the Williams kids. I was busy with my clients, and I think emotionally a little scared. Eventually, I decided to go meet him.
I'm a little kiss to him.
Shortly after we first met Shep, he took us all on a family vacation to Disney World.
I thought of Disneyland because my childhood, I always wanted to go to Disneyland, and I never really did those kind of kid things.
Growing up, I didn't have a dad. My mom passed away when I was 3, so to have this new man come into my life and then have him step into this father figure role and help us grow and understand the world was such a blessing.
It was one thing to support them and bring them toys and stuff when they're kids. I've seen him be there for the long run.
Well, I met them when I first got on island. They were all just babies. When they wanted to go swimming in the pool, they'd come down to my house in Kihei and jump in the water and spend the day with me and cook out and so on. So I've known the kids for a long, long time and have a great love for them.
I refer to Shep as Grandpa Shep.
He's definitely a father figure, role model.
I love this man.
We love each other. That's all that matters.
I had always thought maybe there would be a family somewhere in my life, and the situation was right there and presented itself.
I think he loves babies, especially with my little sister having her baby Carter. To see him like cooing over her and like playing with her hands and feet, because that was a side of Shep I never got to see when I was a kid. I think that he would be a fantastic father, and I think that I can see him having a baby down the road.
Hi,
beautiful?
That's been his modus operandi from day one, is, you know, involving family and knowing that that energy and family and love is what spurs the artist.
The word mensch and Shep are synonymous. A mensch, trustworthy, always there when you need him, good times or bad times.
When I think of Shep, the thing that comes to mind is how many people that he's helped when they've been down and out.
From Shep, I have learned loyalty because he's such a loyal person.
Carolyn's baby, Lola, who was the baby on the cover. The baby died of quick death. And she called me right afterwards and said she'd like to come join me. She needed to get out of England. The memory of her daughter was just too difficult for her. I loved Carolyn, and there was no question that I was going to make a place in my company for her and give her whatever she needed to make her life happy. And she wanted to make movies, so movies we made. The first movie we made was The Duelist.
It was really Scott's first picture.
It won the Cannes Film Festival in 1977.
Pour le film de Dueliste, réalisé par Ridley Scott.
And we did a couple studio films. We did Roadie.
It starred all my clients, Alice Cooper, Blondie. And then we realized we didn't really like studios. It was movie by committee. So we started an independent film company called Island Alive.
Shep and I were definitely at the fore of the American independent film business.
Carolyn was head of the company. She was the first female head of a studio.
Thanks to Shep, I was at one point the only woman in Hollywood that could actually greenlight a film. Very low budget, but I'd go to him and say, I really like this project, what do you think? And he'd say, do what you want, Carolyn.
We went on to do an amazing slate of pictures.
The first film we acquired was Koyaanisqatsi. Everyone thought we were completely crazy because it had a title you couldn't pronounce, no actors, no clear narrative, but we just believed in the film.
We started out to do a movie together, The Red-Headed Stranger. I was putting together the money, and Shep said, well, you make the movie, I'll distribute it. I think we made $7 or $8 on it.
Kiss of the Spider Woman.
The winner is William Hurt.
If I were to compare Alive to anything, I would say we were Miramax before Miramax was Miramax. And I think Harvey Weinstein would agree with that.
Not true.
It was really early in my career, and I read a book called $1 Billion Babies. And there's a character in there, Shep Gordon, who's managing this maelstrom of maniacs. And I wanted to actually do the rock version of Citizen Kane with Shep being Citizen Kane, okay? So it'd be like Citizen Insane. I probably wasn't right for the role because Shep is much more endearing than I am. I'm much more feral.
Alice, is this cool?
Yeah, come on in. I met Shep Gordon in 1991 on the set of Wayne's World.
And when I went in, Mike was fairly set on using 18 or schools out. But I went in with a real agenda.
Shep came in and went, how about something from the new album? And I said, how about no? And then he went, I happen to know that you start shooting in 2 weeks. So you really don't have a choice.
So I was able to take a very strong position. Not unreasonable, but strong.
He said, but I read the script, and the band is on stage only for 8 seconds. You're not gonna remember. And if we put schools out in the end credits, everyone's gonna think that's the song he sang.
Stick around. Hang out with us. Cool. Yeah, we'll stay and hang around with us. With Alice Cooper.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Since the day of that movie, we never walked through an airport where he doesn't get 100 I'm not worthies.
The red carpet was packed with some of the biggest names in show business.
I am wearing a Dior dress. Thank you for asking.
First time I met Sharon Stone was at the Cannes Film Festival. She was premiering Total Recall, and I went with Michael Douglas, Mick Jagger, and Roman Polanski. The party was at the home that Napoleon built for Josephine on land that has a 1/4 of a mile of coastline. It's priceless. And into the room walked Sharon.
Drop dead gorgeous, literally take your breath away.
And she came over and introduced herself to Michael and I.
She says, oh, what a beautiful house. Shep says, thank you.
I said, oh, let me show you around, sort of Not completely saying it was mine, but, insinuating it was.
Can I show you around? Oh, thank you. I'd love to. That's the last time I saw them for the day.
And that sort of began our ballet. Spent the next couple of years dating and having a really good time. Sharon, like most women in my life, I was attracted to by the beauty, but there's an amazing depth of spirituality behind her beauty. Sharon asked me if I wanted to go see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His Holiness talked about compassion, loving everything, serving. Was very touched by him. Because I was with Sharon, we were taken backstage. Every time His Holiness walks in a room, I feel like I've just taken the greatest shower of my life. It's a return to innocence. When I found out His Holiness was coming to Hawaii, I called Richard Darlow, who was His Holiness's representative, and because I was now, through Mr. Berger, involved with culinary arts, explained to him that part of my life was spent feeding people, and that I would love to feed His Holiness.
That was the beginning of Chef's involvement with the Tibetan world.
And I researched Tibetan food and saw that yak is their culinary staple. I was able to get yak butter, which smelled horribly. Smelled up my whole kitchen for weeks.
Tibetans love to drink yak buttered tea, especially the older ones.
They told me have no expectation of ever meeting him. The first meal was 5 in the morning. Rinchen came to me and said, we need you to bring him his breakfast. And I was like, so shocked, because I didn't think I'd really ever interact with him. And we went to his apartment, and I walked in, and he was brushing his teeth, and yak tea? And I said, yes, Your Holiness. I was so proud, It's like, oh, my God, you noticed. It's so great. And he goes, oh, that's why I leave Tibet. Their next trip was to New York. So I took the trip to New York with them and wanted to use some of my skills to help. I had a very good friend who was the general manager of the Mark Hotel. He was very gracious in allowing His Holiness to stay there complimentary. My duties shifted. I went from chef to board member of Tibet Fund. So I got the bed that the Dalai Lama slept on in the Mark, and that's the bed I sleep on in Hawaii. This is what he put in with my rice. May the poor find wealth. Those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the weak find power, and may their hearts join in friendship. And grace from His Holiness. I like to think, without being too arrogant about it, that there is something to good karma, that karma is a real thing. With Teddy, I used to have these karma conversations. Unfortunately, my last talk with him was London, sold-out house, and he wouldn't go on for no reason. And I sat him down and I explained to him what karma was. And I said, Teddy, you sold out in a day. These are working people. They all had to get babysitters. They all had to arrange their lives for this night. They're sitting in the hall. You don't do this? This is going to come back on you so hard and so fast, your head's going to spin. Just get out and do the show. And he wouldn't do it, and the next week.
Rhythm and blues singer Teddy Pendergrass was critically injured early today when his Rolls-Royce swerved off a winding road in Philadelphia and crashed into 2 trees. The 31-year-old entertainer was trapped in the wreckage for 45 minutes before firemen were able to free him.
I flew overnight to Philly, and when I got off the elevator, the doctor said, you got to tell him he's not going to walk again. He's got to know it right now, and you're the guy to do it. So we walked in the room, and they had him in a frame that they flipped every 10 minutes, and the only thing he could do was blink his eye. So he knew, like blink once, yes, 2, no. And that was not my favorite moment. Yeah, not a good moment. Yeah, that was, I think that for me was sort of the beginning of the end of enjoying what I did for a living. That was a rough moment. And I loved him, still do. Yeah. I made a very strong management decision to not let Teddy be seen. Everybody wanted to do an interview. Everybody wanted a picture. Everybody wanted to know if he was good. And the only reason to let anybody know or see or do anything would be to tell the story you wanted to tell and not to be a victim. My job was to save every bullet we had in the gun for one shot at trying to resurrect his career. And then they announced Live Aid.
Staging the biggest concerts ever before the largest television audience in history.
And that one of the locations was going to be Philadelphia. He was loved in Philly. It's where he lived. And nobody knew what happened to him. No one had seen or heard a word for 3 years. We got to put him on Live Aid. And I called Ashford and Simpson, asked them if they would do it with him. They said they would. Teddy was, I think, very scared to get up in front of people and have to sing, but he finally agreed to it. We got to the show, and there was a ramp going up the stage. Went down at the bottom, and he said, I can't do it, Shep. I'm just too scared. I don't have the power. I just can't do it. And I said, listen, man, I love you, but I'm wheeling you up there. There's nothing you can do. You don't have to sing, do whatever you want to do, but you're going to be there.
And someone we love very much is going to make his first appearance in a long time. Mr. Teddy Pendergrass.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can.
I was really nervous that he wouldn't get to the end of the song. He just killed him that day. He was fantastic. There wasn't a person in the place with a dry eye. Yeah, it was beautiful. One of the things about when you manage someone, there's no end. You have a #1 record, great. The next day, what are you doing? And when I learned how to cook, one of the things that really excited me about it is that if the meal's over, the meal's over. After traveling with Mr. Verger for almost a decade, I asked him if I could act as his road manager on one of his trips. Mr. Verger would tour the world like a rock star tours the world. He would go into a city, his fans would come and eat his meal, get his autograph, buy his book. When we went to an event, they charged $2,500 a person. I found out that he wasn't getting paid, and they wouldn't let him eat in the restaurant because the help couldn't eat in the restaurant. I said, Mr. Verger, people aren't treating you fairly. You have to let me help you. Shortly thereafter, I ran into Wolfgang Puck. I told him my Verger stories, and he said all the chefs were treated like Mr. Verger. About 3 days later, Wolfgang asked me to come over to Spago's for lunch. And when I went in, there was Nobu, Paul Prudhomme, and 35 of the world's great chefs. They basically said, help, we don't get paid either, and we get treated like shit. So I started Alive Culinary Resources.
Which blew my mind because he's in the music and he's in the movie business. He don't need to be dealing with this stuff.
Economically, this wasn't the wisest decision I could make. In those days, I was representing artists like Luther Vandross, who were making more money in a night than any of the chefs made in a year. The only place that they made money was cooking in a building, and nobody had a clear path of how to monetize their talent and expand it. One of the things that I thought was obvious, every store was driven by celebrities, except the supermarket. The athletic store was Michael Jordan sneakers. The supermarket had Chef Boyardee, generic, non-existent chefs. So how do you make a person think about the chef as a celebrity if they never have before? Television.
We're roasting Miss Chicken today on The French Chef.
When I started with the chefs, there was Julia Child. She was on PBS, but there was no other outlets. But there was a fellow in New York who had started CNN and was trying to put together a Food Network. And I saw the Food Network as the real key to fast success. I said, listen, I represent all these chefs, and I can get them all for you for free. And his eyes got gigantic, because in television, talent budget is a killer.
Welcome to the TV Food Network.
And Emerald was the first show signed.
We have our seasoning, our shrimp, our Creole mirepoix. Let's go make a roux.
We traded the television services for the right to do a commercial in which we could sell any product we wanted. And Emerald and I talked about what is unique in his cooking.
It was bam, just like that.
And he said, you know, people are asking about this spice, this BAM stuff.
Bam, just like that. You get some red ones, you go bam, just like that. Then you get some of these, bam, just like that.
Out of that came Emerald Spices.
Add great flavor to grilled chicken using my chicken rub.
and it exploded. Sales went off the roof.
And today, it's the #1 spice in the grocery store. But that's the kind of vision that Shep has.
Here was a way to actually start to put products in stores so that people could have their own little sense or taste of emerald. And it was a home run. So it got other chefs thinking, look at Mario Batali.
Veal, saltimbocca, Batali style.
I don't think he would see all the pasta sauces and the pasta and the cookware. It's huge, huge business.
I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for Emerald. First of all, he paved the way for anybody in the celebrity chef racket.
I was doing everything for free, so I wanted it to get big and leave because it was a lot of work. I know that I created a new category of celebrity chef, which was my mission. So I decided to retire. I felt that I had spent my life living other people's lives and that I wanted to see what my life was and that the only way I was going to do that was retiring. So I called my clients and told them, for the most part, they were very happy for me. Luther was very hurt that I would leave him, rewrote his biography and wrote me out of it.
When Shep hired me to work for him, he was semi-retired. Sometimes I feel like our roles switch and he's taking more care of me than I'm taking care of him.
I was still managing Alice, who's sort of like an arm, not a client. She's a body part at this point. In Maui one day, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who has a raw food chef that she wants me to manage. And I explained to her that I wasn't managing chefs anymore and wasn't really a fan of raw food. But I said, I'll meet with her. The doorbell rang and I opened the door and this beautiful vision, Renee, came walking in. It was love at first sight. She had everything that I wanted in life in a mate.
I knew he was in trouble when he told me she makes this food called raw food. And he told me he loved it. And honestly, it tastes like shit. And I grew up on a farm, so I know what shit tastes like.
I woke up the next morning thinking about her and never really finding it easy to say what I felt. It was really easy for me to invite her to stay in my guest house. And we ended up the next 5 nights cooking together, walking on the beach, and getting closer. On the 5th night, we moved the relationship to a more intimate place. On the 6th day, she moved in. 2 years later, we got married. A beautiful ceremony on the lawn in Maui at sunset with 65 of our really good friends and family. Michael Douglas gave a speech. He said, I know people have trouble with the wife being 30 years younger and the man being 30 years older, but I gave Shep some advice. I said, listen, if she dies, she dies. We went on a honeymoon to Fiji to a very exclusive resort. Normally, there's only one guest on the island. And coming in, they explained to us that there was a second couple on the island, but they wouldn't get in our way. Renee's computer wasn't working. I called the front desk, asked them if they can send someone to fix the computer. 5 minutes later, there's a knock on the door. It's Steve Jobs. He's the other guest in the hotel. And Steve Jobs fixes the computer. Renee ends up making dinner for him for the next 4 nights because he's a raw food person. It's one of the magic moments of my life. After we returned from Fiji, I couldn't help myself be a manager. So I set her up with a book deal, and I helped her get a television show. Acted, I guess, as husband and manager, because that's all I knew how to do. I expressed my desire to have children. Renee said she would like to have children. So we started to work on it, and she's not getting pregnant. It just wasn't happening.
Some people could go their whole lives and not have kids. It's not a big deal, but there's some of us, we know the truth. There'll be something missing if it doesn't happen. And I think Shep might be one of those.
So I said to Renee, let's go see the doctor. Maybe we can solve this. Renee felt that a child should be a natural occurrence. I respected her opinion, but I didn't agree with it for my life. Slowly after that, our relationship just drifted apart, and we ended up getting divorced. No idea who I'm going to leave this to after I pass away. Don't really know. Haven't quite dealt with it yet.
On January 13th, 2012, Shep came home from a golf game. I said, "Are you okay?" And he went, "I've got this stomach ache." He goes, "But I think I just have some gas."
We're playing golf. Usually he likes to play 9, so it wasn't that weird at the time that he was like, I think I'm gonna take it in. He took off on us and went home.
He came outside and he had a sarong on. I said, "Well, do you want me to stay around?" And he said, "No, no, go home." I was a little concerned.
And I got a text like, "Can you come here?" I came out of my room and could tell he was in the worst pain of his life. I was like, I gotta get this guy to the hospital, let's go. That we got him into the ER. They said they pumped him full of enough stuff to put down an elephant.
Shep had what the doctors explained to me was a heart attack of the small intestine. If Shep didn't get surgery, he would die. If he did have the surgery, the chances of him surviving it were only 20%.
They had him under for 4 days. Nobody could get any information at all.
My phone wouldn't stop ringing for the next couple days. People who don't know how they got my number. People trying to figure out how is Shep.
Not many people survived the kind of operation he had. I had finally started to have a great relationship with this man, and the possibility that he may not be coming back was definitely something to get used to. And I didn't want to get used to it. I didn't want to think of him not being there in my life.
We don't want to lose a guy like him.
I didn't know what the hell was going on. Didn't know if I was gonna lose him or not.
After the surgery, I would just sit by the bed and hold his hand. But he finally looked up, and I could see in the fogginess he was looking for someone else to be there. And it was really, I felt really bad for him that the person sitting there was me, you know, his paid assistant. Going through that experience, you would want it to be your life partner, or, you know, and there it was me. And I felt really, really lonely for him. His healing was miraculous. He really took this time to go very deep inside to heal himself.
I've spent my whole life making people famous, but there's nothing about fame that I've ever seen that's healthy. It's something that's very hard to survive and has no intrinsic value unto itself. I love what I did. I wouldn't change anything that I did in my life, but I probably would have managed less artists at a time and found a place for a life. You know, it was late in my life where I got lucky enough to find a family, but I never really developed a family. It wasn't, I was living Alice's family life and their family, not mine. I didn't have time for it.
I'm just gonna say it one time. I don't think it's a coincidence. First it was the raw food, and then his ass blew up.
You know, Shep's friends truly are his family.
He's more than a friend. He is like my brother.
I have told Shep things that I haven't told anybody else. Not even my wife.
I'd like to give him a nice big kiss right in the lips because he's just such a great guy is what I'd like to do.
His laugh as I got to go down in the Smithsonian Hall of Chuckles.
It's this barking sort of like seal laugh.
Shep Gordon is the nicest person I've ever met, hands down.
I've never heard him say an unkind word about anybody. And yet he's not, what's the word, boring?
He loves making people happy.
He has taught me to be grateful and be really careful about what you complain about when you're damn lucky.
Yeah, I've always wanted to have a baby, but I haven't given up. There may still be a little squirt left in me.
Cat clogged my eyes. Mom's been thrown out of the social circle, and Dad has to hide.